Hello everyone. So today I'm going to be guiding you through how you can combine two pieces of software that we create, the AuditSafe 21 CFR and GMP-compliant module and our Phoretix 1D analysis software to be able to perform analysis of 1D gels and blots in a 21 CFR and GMP-compliant manner. Now, I'm going to log in here using a typical lab analyst level account. You'll know, those of you that are QA and QC focused watching this video, a big part of that legislation, that guidance, is that you have the ability to narrowly define the permissions of what user accounts can do at what level, and that is, attributed to their job role and seniority within the company. We have all of that set up in other videos that we have on our YouTube channel that run through how we create users, how we validate them, how we set up passwords, and how we define the permissions that they have, what they can do with projects and data. So I'm not going to go deep into that at the moment, but just so you know, the first stage of this I'll be logging in as just like typical lab analyst that's kind of just a member of the team in the lab. So I will log in with that account now, and I will create my project. Now, I'm going to be going through this project under the kind of assumption that the user would already have the image from the scanner or the densitometer on their computer, and they would be importing it into the software. Those of you that are hot on your QA and QC stuff will identify that that has introduced an air gap between image creation, image capture, and the analysis step where you've actually gone through and quantified your data. We do have a way around this. We do have the facilities to be able to import images as soon as they exist, as soon as they're created, directly from the vast majority of scanners and densitometers on the market. I'm probably going to create another video about that process because it's a bit involved, but just so you know, we can remove that air gap. It will just require a bit more communication between Total Lab and the end user, but it's completely possible to have a seamless audit trail from the moment the image is created all the way through analysis to project sign-off at the end, and I'm going to be going through the sign-off process at the end of this video as well. But yeah, for this video I'm just going to act as if I've got the image from the scanner and it's on my computer, and I'm going to bring it in now. So I'm going to create a new project. I will call it 1D Gel Demo 2 because I can't have a project with the same name as an existing project, so they can't, there's no kind of risk of overwriting them or anything like that. Again, there's not multiple copies of projects, all that kind of stuff, all that kind of compliance stuff. So the software will not allow me to create two projects with the same name to prevent any kind of crossover, mistake, or breach of 21 CFR regulations. I will bring in my gel image here, and I will create my new project. So as you can see, that's taken me straight through into revision 1 of my project. Revision 1 being literally just the image file with nothing happening to it. So the only thing that's present in my audit trail on the right hand side is that the project was created and it's timestamped with the user that's created it. Obviously we have the ability to export this as a PDF, and it's much more complete than the brief view that we get on the side here. I've got three options at this point. I can check out a copy of the project, which is what I need to do if I want to make any changes to it. I can get a read-only copy of the project, and this is especially useful for when you're signing off projects that you may have not authored yourself. And I'll go into that as part of the sign-off procedure towards the end of the video. And I can request that this project is signed off. Again, I'll be going through the sign-off procedure towards the end of the video. But this would send the project off to be signed off by someone with those permissions. So a lab supervisor, a lab manager, someone with kind of elevated permissions as defined in the admin tool. So first things first, I will check out this project. You can see the checkout has been added to the audit trail. And these are all the options that I have for Phoretix 1D as integrated in this program. So I've got the option to begin my analysis of the project. I can create a multiplex image within the AuditSafe software. So if I had multiple time points, multiple different images that I wanted to combine together to be able to do things like multi-channel normalization, things like that, I can do that all within our AuditSafe software combined with Phoretix 1D. I can view my image that's associated with the project. I can I can calibrate my image, and I have another video on calibration using step wedges and things like that. So I'm not going to go through it here, but we do have the option to calibrate at this point from the start of a project. I can apply an already existing calibration file. So if you're using calibrated images, you probably calibrate your scanner once a week or something like that, and then you would just apply the most recent calibration that you've done if you don't want to create a whole new one. So you can just apply the calibration file that you've already set up. And then the inspect tool allows us to inspect the raw data of the image, do things like check out the histogram of the image, see what all the bit depth of the image and things like that, dig really deeply into the quality of that image, the dynamic range, things like that. But I'm not going to go into all of those, but I just wanted you to make you aware of what all these buttons are. And if you've seen my other video where we go through how we can make a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet, 21 CFR compliant, and have an audit trail surrounding that, you'll notice that I've still got the Excel integration plugged into AuditSafe at this moment in time. So if I click Analyze, the Phoretix 1D analysis software opens, and it loads in the gel file that I provided when I created the project. So this image is actually come through very well. I don't need to change any of the kind of contrast or anything, I don't think. But if I did, I would just do it in these tools. And this version of Phoretix 1D is exactly the same as all of the other versions of Phoretix 1D. There is only one version. It's just that this one is combined with the AuditSafe software as well. So all of the other videos that I've got surrounding how to use Phoretix 1D are applicable to this video as well. So I'm going to come through and I'm going to see how the automatic lane detection does here. Oh, it's done a pretty good job. I could sit here and fine tune this, but it's not going to be the world's most interesting video, so I'm just going to leave it like this. But I am aware, some of our bands are extending beyond our lanes, things like that. Take this as an example, not a gold standard of how to analyze a DNA gel, Southern Blot, Western Blot, whatever, a lateral flow test, a TLC experiment. Don't take it as a gold standard of that. Take it as a gold standard of how to kind of go from A to B in analyzing a gel or a blot in a 21 CFR compliant manner, and how we handle that at Total Lab. So I'm going to accept that as the automatic lane detection's done a great job and it's pulled out all my lanes, even the blank ones, and I'll just go through with my analysis as playing the role of the lab analyst. I will come down to my background removal step, and I have a feeling Rolling Ball is going to do quite a nice job here. So I can turn on my different lanes just to see what background is being removed from which lane and make sure that the settings that I've applied, because they do apply to every lane, are suitable for every lane. In the summer update of Phoretix 1D, which could be Phoretix 1D.5, we are actually going to introduce the ability to define different background parameters for every single lane within your gel. So if you have a gel or if you have a blot like this, where you've got quite uneven kind of background running through your Western Blot membrane, running through your lanes, you may want to change the parameters or even the technique that you're using for background removal on a per lane basis. We are going to be introducing that feature. We think it's going to be very handy for people in this circumstance where they've got kind of very uneven exposure or antibody application or uneven washing, whatever's led to the unevenness of this experiment. We're going to have the tools to handle it. So I'm going to say, yep, that's fine. I'm going to apply one of my molecular weight ladders, and I'll just grab one of the pre-made ones here. Let's go for a magic mark. Oh, and it lines up perfectly. So I'll apply those to either end of my blot. I will, let's see, what's going to be the best one here. Yeah, linear log seems to be the best. 9.5, that's kind of, 0.95, that's good. Run through to my automatic band detection step. That's done a really good job actually pulling out the bands there as well. and you can see it's identified the bands on the lane profiles that I've got visible. Obviously it's not done lanes 1 and lane 20 because they're my marker lanes, and we've kind of in a way already detected the bands on those lanes. I might remove lane 3. So I'll just delete that band from there. If I wanted to perform any normalization, I would. So let's just normalize everything to this band, shall we? Just to go through the motions of, assuming this was a standard, we'll say everything as a proportion of this one. So we'll normalize to that band. Not going to do any quantity calibration because I do show that in my other videos, but just assume we haven't got any standards in this particular plot to be able to do quantity calibration from. And then we come down to our results section. Our results section there's two ways to get reports out of AuditSafe. You can either do it from the analysis software that's plugged into it, like Phoretix 1D, by creating a PDF report or generating CSVs, or you can do it straight from the project itself without checking it out. Neither change the data or anything, neither is better than the other. They're just two routes to the same piece of information. So what I'm going to do is, as my lab analyst, I believe I've analysed this correctly. I think it's all finished, so I'm going to close the experiment, I'm going to save my changes, and then I'm going to commit the changes, the analysis, to AuditSafe. So if I add any relevant notes to go along with this analysis, so obviously we know who performed the analysis and the date and time, that's all part of the audit trail, so I can say, antibody batch number 3, imperfect wash step, let's say something like that. This section is great for filling in any notes that you want to keep with the project for the lifetime of the project. So if someone came back in 10 years and they reopened this project, it would be great to have some context, some notes of the samples that we used, the antibody lot number that was used, anything that you might want to keep on the record, or anything that you want to pass along to the person that's going to sign off this project. So if I, as the analyst, did notice that there was imperfect washing or kind of this uneven background across the membrane, that would be something that you would like to keep in the notes and pass along to the supervisor so that they can see that and they can make the judgment call as to whether this is an experiment that needs to be repeated or whether the results are going to be accepted even though there's been an imperfect wash and we've got this imperfect background. They might look at the project and say, well, yes, we've got imperfect background or uneven background along the membrane. However, the analysis is still accommodated for that by using the software, by using the background removal, the settings are correct. I'm happy and confident that the quantities, the volumes, the intensities of those bands are still being represented accurately despite this because the software has accommodated for them. So I will commit this, and you can see my notes form part of the audit trail as well. And then I'm going to request sign off. And again, you get another option of putting in any additional notes that you want to send along with the project to whoever is going to be doing the judgment, signing it off or not. So I'm going to click OK, and you can see that this project has now been set in a pending sign-off request state. So I, as the analyst, can't do anything additionally to this project until it's either been signed off or rejected. This means that no one can change the data in the period of time between sending it for sign off and it actually being signed off. So you know when you come in to sign off a project, the version that you're looking at is the only version. There has been no changes underneath between you receiving the sign off request and signing off the project. This is exactly how it was when the analyst sent it for sign off. So at this point, I can't do anything more as a lab analyst apart from, well, with this project, I can only go on and create new projects and things like that. I can cancel the sign-off request if I suddenly remember, oh, I should have done this step of the analysis and I've forgotten. But yeah, the rest of it lies in the hands of a lab supervisor, a QA supervisor, a QC supervisor, someone like that, to determine whether the analysis is good and whether it should be accepted. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to log out of my lab analyst user and I'm going to log in as my QA manager kind of username, which I've called sign off. So I will log in as this person who does have sign off permissions. And I can come into, if I have all projects listed, I can see if I come into the project awaiting sign off, because I am now logged in as a user that has the ability to sign off projects, I can see that there is a project that is awaiting my sign off, or anyone's sign off with those permissions. You can see that it has a separate logo from the other projects to say that it is checked in. So if I click on this project, I can see all of the work that the previous analyst has done. I can see all the notes that they've left for me. And I can also accept, reject, or cancel the sign-off request. What I can also do is check out a read-only copy of the project, and this is how I would actually go through and judge the work of this person. So what I will do is check out a non-editable read-only copy of the project. Now this will allow me to view the project but not make any changes, so I'll only ever see it as it was analysed. So there can never be a discrepancy between the analyst that performed the analysis and the person signing off. So if someone rejects a sign-off, the analyst can't turn around and say, well, that wasn't what I submitted, you've changed it. There can be no confusion about where the data has come from and what the project is being signed off for and against, if that makes sense. I am only ever looking at the person's work and accepting it or denying it based on their work. So I can export the analysis report from here. As I mentioned previously, this is the second way of getting a PDF report out. But what I really want to do is view the project. So again, viewing the project will open it in Phoretix 1D. I go straight to the results section because that's kind of how I left the project. But if I come in and I try and change any of the settings, like the background settings or anything, it immediately reverts. Any of the band detection settings, it immediately reverts to the settings that the user had used. So there's no risk of any data being tampered with, changed at this stage. So if I come through as the supervisor and I say, yep, this all looks good, it's all correct as per our SOP on site, they've performed all the work perfectly, I agree with the background settings that they've used, the molecular weight ladder that they've used, and the fitting that they've used to kind of come up with the molecular weight of the bands in the experiment. I'm happy with this, everything's been done as it should have. I will close the window down, I will return the non-editable copy. I don't actually need to do that, I don't actually need to return it to sign it off. As you can see, I've still got the sign off option here. I'll return the project and I will accept this sign off. So at this point, again, you can add any relevant notes to say, you know, I signed this off because the settings were correct, I believe the results were correct, etc., etc. Whatever notes you'd want to keep with the sign-off stage of the project to agree with the way the analysis has been performed, you can include in this section, and again, that will form part of the audit trail, part of the project that can always be relied on in the future to go back to. So even 20 years from now, you go back, someone looks back at your records and says, well, why was this project signed off? You can have all of the information here along with that project. If I want to sign off this project, and I've got to put some notes in here, so sign off approved as per SOP 1.3, something like that. To make sure that no projects are signed off, say, although we do have automatic sign out on the software, say if I was the lab manager, the QA supervisor, and I stepped away from my computer for a moment, there is the possibility that someone else could come to my login when I'm already logged in and try and approve projects that I personally have not approved. But it would say on the audit trail that I have approved them under my username. So to get around that kind of, social engineering kind of gap, we require users to re-input their password when they are signing off projects. So this means that when you see someone has signed off a project, when you see that username has signed off a project, you can be very confident that that is physically that person has performed that work. So if ever in the future there is a kind of a disagreement about, well, I didn't sign off that project, well, we can guarantee that it was, or you've been sharing your passwords with someone else, which you shouldn't be doing anyway, as per the regulation. So we're really rigorous with the way that we handle sign-offs to make sure that the person signing off the project is guaranteed to be the person that is responsible for signing off projects. So I will put in my password again, and you can see this project is now signed off, and it's given the sign-off state. So if I come back to all projects, this has now got a special logo to show that it has been signed off. And if I come back in as my test user, my lab analyst user, you'll see that if I go under my projects, I no longer see that project, because in effect, once it's been signed off, it should be finished, right? You shouldn't need to go back to it again. We do have the ability to go back to it again if necessary, but you again have to unlock it with a password. But if I come to all projects and try and open the project, you can see that it's got the tick, it's signed off. I can't do anything with it, I can't change it at this point. It's kind of project finished at that point. You can void the sign off if you do need to reopen a project in the future, be it 10 years, 20 years from now. As you can see from this error message, the lab user does not have the correct permissions to be able to undo that sign off. So for them, the project is finished, it is signed off, that's the end of the project. So I hope you appreciated this is kind of a whistle-stop tour of how someone would go about typically analysing a Western Blot, RNA gel, whatever experiment it may be in Phoretix 1D, how they would perform that on site in a pharmaceutical manufacturing site or one of the sites that uses our Phoretix 1D or AuditSafe software. This is what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, this is how we handle it. This is how we handle the process. It's a very rigorous process that we've implemented with AuditSafe, and this is just one of the applications that we can do with AuditSafe. Obviously, we can wrap it around existing software like Microsoft Excel, or we can integrate it with manufacturers' pieces of equipment to give them this level of 21 CFR and GMP compliance. And that's kind of something that we're growing all the time in the number of devices that we're compatible with, and the number of pieces of software that we have integrated into our AuditSafe. The idea being that eventually we'll cover entire workflows with the AuditSafe software. You'll have multiple pieces of analysis software, multiple pieces of equipment, all using this scaffold to ensure 21 CFR and GMP compliance. As ever, thanks for watching, and if you'd be interested in trialing out a copy of the AuditSafe 21 CFR GMP compliance software, or you've got any advanced 21 CFR or GMP compliant needs, please check out the links in the description below.